All right, it's a Wednesday night, and the computer tells me I am live, so I'm going to assume that that is accurate and trust that we actually are live on a Wednesday night here at 8:30 p.m. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com for the live Panther-Lair Show. We're joined by Jim Hammett here momentarily. RJC Man 38 is waiting ever so patiently, and we appreciate your patience as we get it rolling here and let people start to show up on the live stream. Trust my microphone is working and you can hear me as I ask you once again to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. That's to make sure that you never miss any of our exclusive Pitt video content, the daily morning Pitt videos that we roll out every day of the week, somehow finding things to talk about, even when it is the middle of July, the deadest time on the college sports calendar. We're still finding things to talk about Monday through Friday. 20 minutes, half hour, however long it takes just to get your day started with a little bit of Pitt conversation, your morning shave, your morning shower, your morning Pitt. We appreciate you. Hayes P15 says everything sounds good. I'm glad to know that the microphone's working and I haven't been talking to myself for the last, minute and a half or whatever it's been. Yeah. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's what I was saying. You won't miss the morning Pitt videos. You won't miss these live streams that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. You won't miss recruit interviews or post-practice press conferences or practice highlights, all those things that we do here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's all sort of supplementary to the covers we have on Panther-Lair.com, but you don't want to miss it. So make sure you like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I always go through this spiel at the beginning of the video when people are sort of slowly filtering in. I need to wait until we're like later on in the video and really hit the numbers at their peak. But we'll get to that. We'll figure out a good format to this show eventually. And then, of course, the website, Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You can find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards, which, for better or for worse, are probably the best place to talk with other Pitt fans on the internet. I think it's the best online community of Pitt fans you're going to find. All day, every day, Pitt fans are talking to each other on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. And if you're a Pitt fan, you want to talk to other Pitt fans, this is the place to do it, Panther-Lair.com. And, of course, our good friend from Panther-Lair.com is Jim Hammett, and he joins us now. Jim, you write for Panther-Lair.com. You've been writing for Panther-Lair.com for a few years, but you started off as a board poster, right? Just regular guy on the boards, right?
Just if you start at the bottom, your dreams can come true.
At the bottom. It's not at the bottom. No. We were segueing into talking about how good the message boards are. What drew you to the message boards initially, Jim?
I want to say it was Todd Graham leaving. I think it was like, all right, I got to figure out what's going on. So, you can come around in like not so like dire times, but I think that's what drew me in.
Okay, and you were just so enthralled by the conversation. Now be honest, and you won't offend me as the chief content producer on the site, but what kept you on Panther-Lair.com? Was it the content or was it the boards and coming back to the boards in the community every day?
I would say both. I think we do it better than anyone else. So I think we have great content to read all the time, and of course the great community on our message boards.
I always crack up when somebody's on the boards and they're like, "Hey, why didn't I see an article about this? Or are you guys ever going to write about that?" And it's like, well, that's been on the board for 7 hours, or that's been on the front page for 7 hours. But I think a lot of people do have like the message boards bookmarked. That's where they go first, and I think it's because they like to interact and talk to other Pitt fans. And even now, even in July, I mean, there's conversation happening. I mean, it's all day. People are finding things to talk about. Most of it's Pitt related. Some of it's not. But people are still pretty creative in coming up with conversations. You engaging anything on the boards today? Any interesting threads that stood out to you?
I don't know if there was anything too interesting today. I mean, I guess I guess Pitt related.
Way to sell the product, Jim. Well, way to go. That's strong salesmanship right there. Remind me not to put you on the ad sales team.
I guess we were talking about Penny Samaya leaving. I guess that is a pretty good thing to talk about. I mean, you were talking about like off the wall topics there, and I don't know if anyone caught my eye today.
Yeah. Well, the Penny Samaya thing, and actually RJC Man 38 jumped in as a super chatter before we even started. Yeah, like 8:21, he became a super chatter
Wow.
and then posted a comment 6 minutes before the show even started. And it's kind of I was going to talk about this anyway, but since he asked right off the bat and he was a super chatter, and it's a way if you want to get your questions answered, your comment heard, you can be a super chatter as well. Click the little dollar sign down at the bottom of the chat screen, and that's what he did. So we're going to go to his comment first, and it ties into the Penny Samaya thing. He says losing life skills coordinator right before the season, will that hurt team continuity in any way? In my opinion, the life skills program has been Pat Narduzzi's biggest success story. Um, I think it's a really significant update and development. Penny Samaya, in case people don't know, former Pitt lineman. He did a year or two as the radio sideline reporter. It was actually during the 2007 season. I have all of the games from the 2007 season on DVD. One of their video guys years ago burned copies of all 12 games because I wrote that very short book about the 2007 season, and I was like, well, I need to go back and watch all the games, and so he burned copies for them. So I have copies, and a few of them, I mean, certainly the West Virginia game is just the TV broadcast, but a bunch of them are like either the coach's tape or I don't know what it is, but the audio is Bill Hillgrove, the late Bill Fralick, who was in the booth at that time until he was maybe a little too critical of Steve Peterson and ended up not being in the booth anymore. But shout out to Bill Fralick upstairs. But Penny Samaya was on the sidelines for like a year or two. So he did that, but most prominently and most recently, he was in charge of the life skills department, where I think he did an outstanding job, built that department into a real asset for Pitt, both in the experience of student athletes on campus and in recruiting. I think it was a big recruiting tool. I don't think it hurts team continuity. It was a pretty sizable department. I want to say they had 9 or 10 people in the department. Penny Samaya left. That actually follows John Pelusi, the younger John Pelusi, leaving to take a job at Alliance 412 a few weeks ago. So they're down a couple staffers and certainly the head as far as Penny Samaya. I don't think it hurts team continuity. I also don't know if I would really necessarily credit Pat Narduzzi with it for being a success story. I mean, it's something that Penny Samaya built with the support of Heather Like. I don't think it's anything that's going to cost or help them win games this fall, but it's a blow to one of the strengths of the athletic department.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you see Penny just about anywhere, any basketball, football game, anything Pitt related, he's there. So I think he's a great representative of the university, and he's been an asset in developing that life skills program. But it's not all him. I mean, I think Pitt has one of the largest in the country with, 10 staff members. So if they're down two, what he built is still there. That's not going away. He's not taking the program with him. So I think he laid a foundation for Pitt to have this thing. They can use it as an asset, but like as the day to day, it doesn't affect the football team. It's not going to mess up the continuity of what's going to happen this season. I mean, he's there to enhance their educational experience and kind of build themselves after college. So it has nothing to do with the actual on field anything like that. But it's also a good selling tool in recruiting. I mean, we hear kids talk about it. We interview recruits all the time. So it's part of Pitt's overall sales package right now. But and losing someone like that obviously hurts, but again, it's still in place. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and he was such a good ambassador for the program. I think parents were sold by him. It is something he built up, but a lot of the staff that he has in place, kind of like you alluded to, they've been there for a while. So they should know how it runs. I don't know if you're going to find another Penny because there aren't many pennies in the world, to be quite honest, but I think you can find some good people, and it should be, if they want to hire a new person to lead the department, I think it should be an attractive job for someone. And if they want to promote from within, I think they probably get some good candidates. Josh Newark sees the big picture. Penny Samaya leaving to take a job with the Buffalo Bills to help with, I forget the exact title, they're building a new stadium, right? And so he's going to help stadium public relations. Josh Newark points out that Heather Like is playing 4D chess. Penny's taking the Bills stadium job, absolutely setting the stage for his return with real world experience to build the new Pitt Stadium in 2026. So Josh is onto it. Did you see this angle?
I didn't see this angle, but it's interesting because that stadium's definitely going to get built in all that room in Oakland right now, right?
Well, Penny will come back and know how to create the room in Oakland. I actually had forgotten. I didn't realize the Bills we're building a new stadium, or I'd forgotten it. That's the weirdest part to me, is you have a guy who was really good at a very sort of specific thing in college sports, and he's leaving to do something almost completely opposite. He's going from dealing with people. Now, I guess it's sort of public relations on the stadium build, so there's still some human interaction there. But I mean, you're going from something drastically different of creating forever Panthers, as Penny always said, to helping build a new Bills stadium. I guess he's from there. He's from that area, so maybe there's a desire to get back home. And he wasn't going to go work at the University at Buffalo Life Skills Department, I presume. But it's still a bit of a weird. That caught me off guard as much as anything. Like, he wasn't leaving to go be the life skills guy at Texas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain extent that did come out of nowhere, really. But I mean, I'm sure it's a great job opportunity. Obviously, the Bills have a lot of money, the owners, the Pagolas. So I mean, it's probably just it was too good to turn down, I would imagine.
Yeah, I always I mentioned University at Buffalo, and I mean, you want to get the title correct. It's the University at Buffalo, and I remember Pitt playing 2 games up there, 2009 and 2012, and both times I prayed, as we're sitting during the game, that at some point somebody would have a ball placement at the Buffalo 40, because the way they would say it, it'd be like ball at the they would say the school in the 40, like, what yard line is that? And they would say it as the ball is at the UB 40. And I always I was like, come on, please, please. It was like a 1 yard game from the 41. And I'm like, yes, they got the ball at the UB 40. Nobody else really appreciated that. It only happened like once in 2 games. Nobody else really appreciated it.
They do not play Red Wine.
They didn't play Red Wine. They didn't play that sweet cover of I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. I mean, UB40 has the catalog, I think, to support such a gimmick, but they did not. I would highlight the 40 in red. Actually, I would make the 40 red, just so when it was the UB40, they could. Anyway, it's good. I'm still living on that joke 11 years later. But so I was trying to think about some different things we could talk about this week, and one thing, I think we should talk about Marquez Williams. I think we've talked about Marquez Williams in the past, but it's sort of, as we were talking about message board topics to start the show, that was one that came up yesterday or today, that Marquez Williams seemed to be expressing a feeling of disrespect. Again, I guess it's a new week. It's another time for Marquez to show some disrespect, or at least a chip on his shoulder. It was, did you see the tweets before he deleted them?
I know of the tweets.
Okay. It was the same stuff. I feel like we've seen these things, and there's I think there was a comment in the message board thread that was like, anytime a random college football account with 30 followers doesn't list Marquez Williams among the top 5 corners in the country, he takes it personal and tweets about it. So it's hard to gauge. It could have been a response to the fact that MJ Devonshire and Phil Jurkovec and Mac and Salves went to ACC Media Days. It could have been a response to Big Game Boomer. Who knows what it was, and it might have had nothing to do with football at all. But Marquez Williams and the disrespect factor, and I'll be honest here, I never thought he would amount to what he's amounted to. Like, when he came in as a recruit, I was like, okay, this guy's tiny. What is this guy really? He's gonna at best be what Avonte Maddox was in college, and I mean, obviously Avonte Maddox went into a good NFL career, but he's going to get eaten alive by bigger corners. But here's a guy who has just stuck around for 5 years now. This is going into his 5th season, and just has gotten steadily better and better. And when he will go on his Twitter rants about how he never gets targeted, I mean, that's true. He had one of the lowest target percentages, target per route covered, or whatever you want to call it, target per coverage snap, one of the lowest percentages of any corner in the ACC. And so there were a lot of guys with more interceptions than him, although there were only a couple because he still had 2 picks. But they all saw twice as many targets as he did. And that, to me, is the biggest show of respect of all. The fact that he's not getting targeted like some of these other guys did. So he's getting fewer opportunities for pass breakups and interceptions. That's a show. I think that's a show of respect from the opposing quarterbacks. And I think we've talked about him before. But, I mean, do you remember when Williams was coming out as a recruit? I mean, did you expect him to become the player he has become today?
No, I didn't expect 5 years later he would be a team leader, multi-year starter, chance to play in the NFL. Probably not. I mean, I didn't have those expectations, but I do recall him getting on the field early. I think in that UCF game, maybe in 2019, is they were down a couple guys, and all of a sudden, okay, Marquez Williams is out there. They put the 5'8" freshman out there, but I think that kind of speaks to what the coaches think of him. I think he's a good player. He's proven that year after year, and like you said, teams don't really throw at him. It's kind of unique, and you don't really see that kind of respect for a corner, especially because Pitt has other good corners. It's like you're not picking on someone bad; you're picking on another guy that has a chance to play in the NFL. So it is unique. So I do think part of his game, and I think part of it's probably being short his entire life, is you do kind of have that chip on your shoulder. You do play the disrespect card, and I think it can work in his favor. And I think he has one of the bigger voices in that locker room right now. And I think a lot of people listen to him. So he's feisty, and I think that's a good trait to have as a cornerback.
The stat I can't get over, and this is partially related to Williams and partially just kind of overall in the Narduzzi era. Do you know how many first-team All-ACC cornerbacks Pitt has produced in 8 years of Pat Narduzzi football?
I would guess 0.
Like, am I the only one who's stunned by that stat? They've had 4 draft picks and no first-team All-ACC selections. They've had one corner who was a first-team or a second-team All-ACC pick by the coaches. It was Dane Jackson in 2019. But no first-team picks, no second-team. MJ Devonshire made it as like a specialist, even though he had 2 pick sixes last year. I was actually talking with some other people about this. Part of me almost wonders if other coaches in the ACC just get so irritated with how Pitt's corners play, how physical they are. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure those guys are talking to refs before every game. Watch this guy, watch this. He likes to use his hands, this and that. I mean, if we're talking about the coaches, all ACC team, which is what I was looking at, I mean, is that it? Or they just have always just had really solid guys in Pitt's system, but not the really standout guy who deserves all conference recognition?
I think it's hard to say because in cornerback, there's not so many stats you can quantify. Like, I think everyone just looks at how many interceptions. Oh, you had 6 interceptions. You're probably a first team guy. So I think there's a lot of that. And I don't know if those corners have had big interceptions numbers. Like Devonshire and Williams each had 2 last year. So I think part of it's that. But I would say the coaches that coach against Pitt don't like going up against Pitt's corners more often than not.
I wonder if it's even beyond, oh, they're tough to play against, to like, I don't even like the way they play. You know what I mean?
Like, I mean, there's probably an element to that. It's like you get annoyed that they can get away with that pushing, and they kind of push the limits, and they almost dare the refs to throw a flag on them.
Yeah, because I mean, you're not going to throw 40 flags in a game, right? So if you just committed interference on every play, they're going to have to pick like 2 or 3, and maybe they'll try and make it really stick. But I don't know. And I wonder if last year, I'd like to see how the voting broke down. I think Williams and Devonshire both ended up. No, only Williams was an honorable mention. I was going to say maybe they split the vote to some extent, but only Williams received honorable mention recognition last season. So I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, for all the respect that we think Pitt's corners have, they don't get it around the ACC, and actually, they've only had one safety get first team All ACC honors. Can you name that one? Do you know who that was?
Ferris Ward.
Oh, geez, right off the top of your head. That's good, Jim. You're on point tonight. But I mean, even that is crazy. I mean, like DeMar Hamlin, Jordan Whitehead, Eric Hallett, Brandon Hill. None of these guys. Hallett was a second team pick last year. Hill was a second team pick 2 years ago. Hammond was a second team pick in 2020, and Whitehead was a second team selection in 2016. But, they had the ACC championship game MVP. They had the defensive rookie of the year and still can't buy a first team. I just think it's crazy. They've had 8 defensive backs drafted and 1 first team All ACC selection. Maybe I'm just overstating the value of these guys, and, that they're, solid, but they're not going to put up those big stats. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just the stat numbers. And, if you're Pitt, you're not Clemson, you're not going to get the recognition. But I don't know. That boggles my mind. I would have assumed it was more. And I was shocked when I kind of looked back through and I was like, wait, nobody? Like, none of these guys gets recognition? I don't know. It's crazy. I actually, not to give everything away from my 3-2-1 column on Friday, but my prediction on Friday is that Pitt is going to have a first team All ACC cornerback this year. Can you guess who I'm predicting?
Devonshire.
Yeah. I think he's going to have a bunch of picks. I think he's going to have a great season. I think they'll continue not targeting Marquez Williams, and I think Devonshire will be the benefactor of that. Last one on Marquez Williams, and we have talked about this before, so we won't waste too much time. But does he get drafted next spring?
I go back and forth with that because I think he's a good enough player, and I think Avonte Maddox kind of showed that blueprint, but he is really small. It's going to be tough for him, but I would say no as of right now, but a big senior year might be able to change that.
Yeah. And I think like we've talked about before, I mean, pro day, I don't know if he'll get a combine invite, but there's like a sliding scale. If you get shorter, you better be faster. You better be able to jump higher. You better be able to test through the roof, and he'll have an opportunity to do that. Chris is a super chatter, so we're going to bring Chris in. And he says, Chris, getting donors on board to support the program is crucial in the NIL era. How well has Pitt cultivated new donors, and where does Pitt rank in the ACC as far as having a generous donor base? I don't have those numbers. Jim, do you have numbers on donor bases and ACC and stuff like that?
Like with NIL?
No, just general donor, how much was donated to Pitt last year versus how much was donated to Louisville last year? You have that data?
I do not have that one handy.
I didn't think so. Neither do I. I mean, I don't know. My guess is Pitt is probably in the bottom half in donations. I could be completely wrong about that. Pat Bostic's ears might be burning right now saying like, Peak, you idiot. No, we're top 6. I don't know. I think whatever it is, they could always do better. I think they're trying to raise a lot of money for the Victory Heights project, and I don't think they're ever going to really raise all that much for that project. That's another story. The thing is right now, and I think you'd probably agree with this, the challenge is figuring out where the dollars should go, right? Pitt wants money for facilities and upgrades and coaches and scholarships and all those things. But Pitt also needs money to be donated to Alliance 412 so that the money can be used in NIL, so it can help retain players and recruit players and all of that. If we consider that there's a limited pool, that it's a finite number of dollars that are going to be donated to Pitt in any year, I don't know how, if you're Heather Lyke or you're Pat Bostic or you're anybody in that athletic department, how do you decide what will be your, I don't know what the ideal breakdown would be of how much goes to the athletic department to do things that athletic departments like to do, and how much goes to NIL and collectives to support those efforts as they become more and more important every year. I don't think you're going to keep the same amount of donor money going to the athletic department that you had before, and then just all those donors are also going to donate more on top. If we assume it's a finite number, Jim, and you're the athletic director, how do you even approach it? You're having a conversation with a big donor and he says, all right, I've got X amount that I'm giving. Where do you want me to put it? What do you tell him? What's the answer?
I mean, because it's, as the athletic department, they're going to say us, but as because the NIL is a completely different thing. So if I have $5,000 to donate to Pitt right now, I mean, I think it makes more sense to donate it towards the NIL. I mean, as of right now, I don't know. I think they're going to try to regulate this at some point. They're going to keep kicking the can down the line. But, I mean, to a certain point, I mean, I think that's the smarter investment right now. It's you don't want a Jordan Addison situation to happen again. You want to be able to be active on the transfer market in the basketball game. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would think athletic departments are struggling all across the board, not just Pitt, in convincing people to donate their money to them and not NIL.
I mean, I don't even know how you would answer the question. You know what I mean? If you're Pat Bostic, you're Heather Lyke, and somebody says to you, "Hey, I've got X amount. What do you want me to do with it?" I mean, both answers are right, but both answers are wrong. I mean, you can't. It's hard to say, "Give us that money so we can keep building Victory Heights," which is saying, "Don't give that money to the Alliance." Which would then get that money to recruits and transfers and everybody who needs it. I think ultimately, there's a part of me that feels like entities like the collective will eventually become obsolete because all the things that the collectives are doing will eventually just be folded into the athletic department. It'll become, when they're just paying players. And then there's no need for the collectives anymore. And you have less of a concern about this and less of a question about, oh, where should I donate my money? But right now, I mean, yeah, I know they want to build Victory Heights. I know they want to do all these things and they want money to do all these things, but I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think every dollar that somebody wants to donate, or at least as much as possible, needs to be going to the collective to keep Pitt competitive on that front, because that's kind of where the money is needed the most right now. And I mean, Pat Bostic couldn't say that, Heather Light can't say that, but you and I can, because we're looking at the reality of the situation, which is if you want to be competitive in recruiting, you want to be competitive in the transfer portal, you better have money. I mean, you better have NIL money you can use to stay active there, or else you're going to fall behind. And it's transfers that you don't get, transfers that you lose, and recruits that you're unable to sign. And that is going to hurt you more than not being able, not being, or that is going to hurt you more than if you have to finance extra parts of the Victory Heights project. And no disrespect to the student athletes that are going to use that, but they need they need wide receivers and big time quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, I think I look at this like from a basketball perspective, because that's such a smaller thing to look at, a 13-man roster. And I mean, right now, I mean, could you justify giving Pitt basketball, the actual program itself, $5,000, or would you rather help and bring in another Blake Hinson? And I would think most fans would rather bring in another Blake Hinson, because the after effects is, okay, Pitt basketball is good again. Tickets go on sale. They sell tickets. The athletic department could get the money from there. Right. So it funnels itself back through. But I mean, right now, I would say the smarter, if you're looking to donate money, NIL makes more sense as a fan, consumer, whatever.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it's a great example, actually, because I don't think the success they had last year happens without NIL. I mean, I think NIL played a significant portion of putting that team together and putting that roster together, to the point where if you don't have NIL, or you're not as aggressive with NIL, I don't think you put that team together. I think some of the key pieces don't come together. And you're looking at another year like we saw 2 years ago, and who knows, maybe a coaching change. But I mean, that's where the money has to. I think the money has to be. Adam Vidchik has a question. Says, besides the two silent commitments, take a guess on who will be the next one. And this is interesting to me, Jim, because we talk a lot about we think Yassine Willis and Sincere Edwards. We think those are the two guys that we're sort of waiting on to announce their commitments. That's everyone's kind of general assumption. But what about after that? I mean, even if they get those two guys and hold on to everyone else, they're not going to. I mean, I guess they could stop at 22 in the class, but I think we all know that they're not going to hold on to everyone else, that they might end up at 22 or 23 in the class, but it's going to be different than the 22 or 23 that they currently have. So is there anybody else on your radar that you're looking at in this 24 class as guys they could add, guys they will add, guys we think they will add, or just anybody to keep an eye on?
I mean, I think right now, like in 2 weeks, Zymarian Lang is going to make an announcement, and Pitt's in his Final Four. And I think Pitt was the only team in his Final Four to host him on an official visit. So I think that's probably a good sign for Pitt. I think South Carolina and Kansas State are the other two schools to watch there. So I mean, I think that's a possible commitment. And he's a 4-star wide receiver from Florida. I mean, that's the type of athlete you want to bring in, especially because we've been talking for the past couple of weeks. Wide receiver is a question mark, so they need to kind of build that position up. And I mean, we know they're going to take a quarterback. We just don't know which quarterback. I mean, obviously they want to get Trevor Jackson. Julian Duggar's an option. I mean, they might kind of do what they did last year and, find a quarterback late like they did with Ty Diefenbach. So, I mean, they're going to add a quarterback. I think they're still going to add 2 or 3 more pieces. So they're not done, but I mean, Lang's the only one that's like kind of pending or imminent.
That's a good call on Lang. And I think they got a decent chance of landing him. That would be a good score. I mean, bringing in another big-time receiver to the class, it seems like maybe they're going to be able to hold on to Day Farmer. It seems like things are trending in that direction. He's been rather quiet since taking those visits in June, but it seems like, they made it from Christmas to almost the end of July. So what does that leave left? Like 4.5 months that they got to make it to close the deal on that one. Of the 20 that they've got right now, over under 17.5 signed with Pitt of the 20 announced commitments.
I mean, I don't have any specific guys that I think Tayshaun Banks, because he didn't take a visit. I think
right.
we're kind of wondering what's the real story behind that. But of the other 19, I mean, there's not like an obvious candidate, so you're kind of just guessing the numbers, playing the odds. So, I mean, I think they'll sign over 17. I mean, I think they could lose 2 of these guys, but I really don't know. It's so hard to say right now.
Yeah, I might go under. I might say it's 17. I might say they have 3 guys that come out of the class. But then even if they do, I'm guessing they'll still probably end up at 22. You think? Sign 22, sign 23?
I mean, that's probably about the number because we've seen them value the transfer portal a good bit. So they're going to keep a couple spots for that. That's just kind of how it's been lately.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting also to see. I was just looking today. They have 24 scholarship seniors on the roster. It's almost half and half with super seniors and redshirt seniors. We'll go down that list maybe next week and see who we think might come back and might not. I'm thinking those numbers will keep getting smaller. I mean, year to year, the number of super seniors they return, I think, will keep diminishing until a year or two from now, and we're out of the woods on it altogether. And there's no more COVID year super senior guys left. But you know who's super and is always going to be around, Jim?
Always? Chris
Always
Gates is immortal?
Chris Gates is always – Chris Gates will outlive all of us. And you know why he'll outlive all of us? Because he's doing the programming at Chris Gates Fitness. Panther-Lair Live Show, of course, is sponsored by Chris Gates Fitness. Chris is an online fitness coach from Pittsburgh. He's a huge Pitt fan. And he's got an awesome opportunity coming in just 19 days. Chris is going to launch his one-on-one online fitness training camp on August 7th, and is your opportunity to get your own customized, personalized training and nutrition program to reach your health and fitness goals. You'll work with Chris to create a program tailored to you, and Chris will be there every step of the way to guide and support you through the process. Now, when you join Chris's training camp, you'll have the opportunity to participate in monthly challenges that help you build healthy habits, and Chris will pick winners each month to receive free workout supplements, home gym equipment, and more. Just like how Pitt shows up to training camp on the south side to start getting in shape and build their game plan for the season, you'll work with Chris to map out a strategy that helps you make progress during a time of year where people tend to see their health and fitness go in the wrong direction. Football season, tailgating, road trips, the holidays, and more make a fall a really challenging time to take steps forward. But by signing up for Chris's training camp, you'll commit to enjoying all of those aspects of fall in a way that supports your goals. The program is not only about losing body fat or building muscle, it's about combining all these things into one program that pushes you in the right direction and helps you establish healthy, sustainable habits that serve you well for a lifetime. So don't forget that date. Chris Gates Fitness Training Camp opens on August 7th. Panther-Lair listeners get 75% off their first month of training camp as well. That discount doesn't apply to anybody else, so it's a great opportunity to take advantage. So stay tuned to the podcast for more details and visit chrisgatesfitness.com to learn more. All right, let's see. Adam had that question. We got that. Let's question from Ryan. I'll let you take this, Jim. What would be one question mark or concern for a Pitt position or certain player for the football team that you think will actually perform above expectations and actually be a strength of the team? What's going to be a surprise this year? Something we think is going to be bad, but turns out to be good.
I kind of talked about it a little bit last week, but I think safety's going to start out a little slow, but eventually become a strength of the team. I think that's happened before with Eric Hallett and Brandon Hill. They kind of struggled, and I kind of think that can happen this year. I think Javon McIntyre, PJ O'Brien are pretty talented. I think Stephon Hall, Donovan McMillan. I mean, they're all good players. It's just they haven't done it over the course of the season. So I can see, maybe early on in the season that's, you're kind of wondering, and they might have to lean on the corners a little bit. But I think by the end of the year, I think they could be pretty good.
I was hoping you were going to go out on a limb and say the wide receivers and talk about how the receivers are going to be great. And we're all down on them, but you're higher on them and more optimistic about them than we are. But no, you took the safe, easy option of safety. Disappointed, Jim. I thought you'd have a hot take there. Josh Newark has a question specifically for you, Jim. So this is a good one for you here. Give a percentage chance of the following: 1, the ACC commissioner resigns due to the Northwestern mess. 2, Heather Lyke takes over the ACC. And 3, Steve Peterson returns for a third time and revives your favorite logo, the Dino Cat. I thought those were 3 independent events, but it looks like Josh is referring to them all as one thing. So percentage chance of all of those things happening. I don't know what timeline he's looking at here. Next few weeks, next year. What are you looking at?
This is really well thought out, and actually kind of the dream scenario, but I'd say probably less than 1%. But
that seems fair. Are you? Was there any part of you that wishes you were going to ACC Media Days next week just to see how Jim Phillips handled? I mean, now that he's been named, right? I mean, he's been specifically named, I think, in a lawsuit, right, against Northwestern with player hazing and treatment of players there. I mean, he's going to get questions about it. They'll probably get shot down pretty quickly, right? I mean, nothing interesting will actually come out of this, will it?
I don't know. It's up to Noah Hiles to get to the bottom of this.
Noah will always get to the bottom of that. But Noah does a great job, and Noah will definitely do his best. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, this is the ACC commissioner we're talking about here. It's ACC Media Days. The Triangle Illuminati will attack this. There's a certain elder leadership of ACC media, of which none of us from Pittsburgh are or ever will be privy to join. We're held at arm's length from those folks. They'll attack the conversation long before Noah ever gets a chance to get a question in. And Noah can get a question in. I mean, my man
with the best of them.
He can fight his way to the top. But when you're at an ACC event fighting against Triangle Media, Triangle, I feel is a stonemason symbol too, isn't it? I mean, I feel like there's some connections between maybe not stonemasons, but like the triangle, and it feels very Illuminati-ish to me. Like it's an inner circle, a secret society that we're just never ever going to be able to break into, And so Noah's going to do his best. He might have some good follow-ups, but the real questions are going to be asked by, those who have been here a lot longer than us, I would say. Let's see. Willat Harris is a super chatter, so we're going to give him credit. His wife got paid today, so he threw his $2. Thank you, sir. Tip of the cap to you. Appreciate you. Will Z, curveball question here, says everyone always talks about their good predictions for football. What about your bad predictions? Excluding injury, what is your negative prediction for 2023 football? Example would be certain loss, or a certain loss, a player who takes a step back, a coach who leaves, etc. What would be your negative prediction for this year, Jim?
I mean, what if the running game isn't, like, we know it's not going to be as good, but like, what if it's a problem?
Yeah.
That could really mess up a lot of things with this team this year, because we don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback. So everyone's kind of wondering, well, Rodney Hammond's pretty good. He could probably shoulder the load, but what if he can't?
He's been, would you say he's been good enough in the past to merit the sort of blind confidence? And it's not entirely blind, but would you say he's been good enough in the past to merit the confidence that's been sort of given to him this offseason?
Well, I think over the past 2 seasons and maybe 6 or 7 games, he's ended up being Pitt's leading rusher. So I think he's obviously capable of doing it. He started 2 games last year. So I think there's something there. But I do wonder, like, what if the running game's a problem? And I think that could really throw a wrench into this whole season.
Yeah. I think the blocking will be good enough, right? Would you agree about that? I think the offensive line will be good enough. We talked about, or maybe we were tweeting about the last 4 games of the season. I think the running backs carried the ball 147 times, and 2 of those plays went for a loss. Now, that's not all the running backs, or that's not all the offensive line. That's, backs making something happen. But taken on its surface, that's a pretty good stat. Also, I think during that span, there were 111 dropbacks and only 2 sacks. So in the month of November, 258 offensive snaps, 2 running plays that went for a loss, and 2 sacks. It seems like the offensive line took some big steps in the right direction. So that should help the running backs. I mean, I think we've seen good offensive lines create opportunities for backs who were just okay. Like 2018, Quadri Olson and Darren Hall weren't anything special, right? I mean, like, Olson had a big run that was pretty special, and he's still kicking around in the NFL, but like, it's not like those guys, you weren't going to confuse Hall or Olson with James Conner, with Izzy Benikanda, with Dion Lewis, with LaShawn McCoy. I mean, those guys were very much a step below that upper group of running backs. And yet they both go for 1,000 yards, partially because they had a running, an offensive scheme that favored the running game, but I think the offensive line was really good at run blocking. And I think this group looks like it should be able to help as well. So even if Rodney Hammond's not as good as Izzy Abanikanda, that blocking should help, right? I mean, that should give him a little bit working in his favor, I would think, right?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of reason to have confidence with the offensive line. I've been writing about them all week, so I have kind of I'm really like in a deep web of Pitt offensive line talk right now. So
you've got me inspired on them as well.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's good reason to think the running game should be pretty good with the line and with Hammond's history as even just being the good second back. But I do think like if that somehow goes bad, then I think the whole season could actually go really bad.
There might also, I mean, kind of along those lines, and I think it is something we've talked about. I don't think any of the backs have really shown themselves to be that home run hitter, and I know we've talked about this before. So much of what Izzy Abanikanda was able to do last year came from those big plays, and Rodney Hammond hasn't shown a propensity for that. Sebo, I don't think. Derek Davis was a home run hitter on a straight line in high school, but is he going to do that in the ACC? And I don't know about the freshmen. I don't know if the freshmen get an opportunity to show that they can be that guy. So you could have really good blocking and still not get what you need out of the offensive line if the quarterback isn't up to snuff. My negative prediction, I mean, is just that Jurkovec's just not that good. I mean, like yes, the injury has held him back, but maybe he also was just not that good at Boston College. And I think that's a very real possibility. And I think it's something that Pitt fans are very much concerned about. I mean, we see it on the boards every day. People are talking like, and it's not even like one side versus the other. I think even at the most optimistic among people are like, well, we hope he can be good as he was 3 years ago. It's not even like there's overwhelming confidence or optimism. I mean, we're basing it all on A, what he did 3 years ago, and B, the fact that he did it with Frank Cignetti, that he did it with the offensive coordinator he's working with now. He should have good protection, like we said. Don't really know if his wide receivers are all that great. Don't really know what to expect out of the tight ends. We'll see about the running backs, but there's a very real possibility that he's just okay as a player, that had this big arm and could move around a little bit and became highly rated as a recruit, but never really became anything. And we actually had another question kind of along those lines I wanted to get to. Wolf HD says, quick question. What is or are the reasons to believe in Jurkovec? What makes him closer to Pickett than Slovis if things go well? He can break tackles. Like, he's a big quarterback. He might be pushing like 240, 250 pounds. So he can break tackles and move around a little bit and extend plays and throw the ball really far downfield. But can he run an offense? Can he march? Can he lead an offense down the field sort of methodically and occasionally with quick strikes or deep passes? I mean, I don't know what, what's your answer to this question, Jim?
I mean, I go back to my feelings this time last year, and I was more confident that Keaton Slovis would be good than I am that Phil Jurkovec would be good. That's not to say that Phil can't be better, but I was pretty high on Keaton Slovis because he had all this arm talent. He had 9,000 yards, 50 touchdowns at USC. I mean, there's a lot of reason to think he would be pretty good. Jurkovec, on the other hand, had one good season and two pretty bad ones with a lot of injuries. And yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if Phil wasn't from Pittsburgh, if this whole thing would even work out at all. I mean, I think a lot of it is he's being sold on. He's coming home. He's going to play for Cignetti. They had one good season together. He's been hurt. He's going to figure it out for his final year. So I don't know. So, I mean, July of last year, July of right now, I was probably more confident, maybe part in because the season Pitt was coming off of and what they had coming back. And I thought, oh, they just need one quarterback to kind of just hold it all together. This year, it feels like Jurkovec has to kind of fix a lot of things, and there's a lot of question marks around him. So I'm not saying he can't be good. I'm just very skeptical of the whole situation.
Yeah, and I wonder if the Slovis experiment has negatively affected people's expectations for this. Last year they were counting on a guy who hadn't been good in 3 years or 2 years or whatever it was, and they were banking on this big bounce back, and it never really happened for whatever reason. Is that, a concern again this year? I think probably playing in an offense he's familiar with gives people at least a little more confidence, but he's still got to actually be good enough to make the throws. I mean, we hear all these things out of spring camp of he's throwing the ball as well as he ever has, and he looks great, but we heard Slovis looked great too. We heard Slovis looked good. Matt Durney is a super chatter, and he has a question about the offense and the quarterback as well. Says, am I crazy to believe the offense will be pass heavy with a fifth-year quarterback combined with a known offensive coordinator? No. No. Is he crazy? Maybe. Do I think that'll happen? Probably not. Do you see a pass heavy offense here with a fifth-year quarterback who's comfortable with the offensive coordinator?
Disregarding everything I just said about Jurkovec, if he does show some levels of comfort, I think the only problem in that is they were playing 3 wide receivers like all of last year towards the end of the year. Like they couldn't even substitute like a 4th wide receiver in.
Right.
And so we still don't know what's going to happen there. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to be pass heavy if you only trust 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah, I don't. That's a great point. I mean, we're talking about the quarterback, but somebody has to catch all those passes. I mean, it was one thing when they threw 600 passes or whatever in 2021. They had Jordan Addison out there, but it's not exactly the same. Let's see. Scroll through here. TRR. Will a defensive lineman emerge as a havoc wrecker in 2023? If it comes from an interior player, it needs to come from a younger guy like Elliot Donald. I mean, I think if there's a guy who's going to do that, I think it will be a younger player, and I think it'll be like Sean Fitzsimmons, right? I mean, he's probably my number one candidate. If a defensive tackle is going to put up numbers this year, I think it's him working his way into the rotation and getting onto the field as a redshirt freshman and getting like 6.5 or 7 sacks. I don't know. Do you see anybody else in that kind of role?
He would be my pick as well. I've just been so impressed with him since high school. I know he only played like AAA football, but he had like 50 sacks or something. Like he's just like, and naturally finds his way to the backfield. And even in spring ball, he was doing that. So I think he would be the likely candidate of the interior lineman. I don't know about defensive end. Maybe Sammy Okunlola, possibly.
Yeah. Deion Hayes. I mean, I think it probably. Deion Hayes should lead the team in sacks this year, right?
That's my expectation of him. I think he's going to be their top defensive lineman.
Does it? I mean, he's a senior this year. That's kind of crazy to me. And like, sometimes people get over dramatic and say, "Well, clock's ticking, time's running out," but it kind of is. He could take the COVID year. He could come back again next season, but like, geez, where did the time go? And where's his production been? He's been stuck behind a lot of guys. I mean, there have been guys who returned a lot and came back a bunch of times, but boy, it's kind of now or never for Deion Hayes, right?
This is his make or break year. And there's been moments for him. Like he had 3 sacks against Miami last year. I think he had a couple plays in the ACC championship 2 years ago. So he always like came on like late in the year in a big game. But yeah, like throughout the course of the season, we've never seen him do it. So that's what he's being asked to do this year, though.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see who emerges from. I mean, it's going to be interesting. If nothing else, the D-line is going to be interesting to watch. Ryan says that you are winning for the fancier background tonight, Jim. You got the Joe Russo's Almost Dead. I see the Tedeschi Trucks band. What's over your right shoulder? I can't see that one over there.
That's Green Sky.
Green Sky. Okay. Yeah, I have no posters behind me. I just have this blank thing. I have a random shadow there. That I don't think you would ever guess what it is. I do have a poster. I got my Sweet Day of the Dead poster over there. That's one that I'm particularly fond of. First there was Night of the Living Dead, then Dawn of the Dead, then Day of the Dead. So I have that, but I keep it off camera, and then the random shadow. Do you want to guess what that shadow is, Jim? Do you have any guess?
Is it not the microphone? Like it kind of like
No. See?
Oh no, I don't know.
No? I don't even know if I don't even think I could really. It's a treadmill.
Yeah.
This is a random thing to be sitting right next to, but it's right next to me. So I
thought you were gonna have like a movie quality like Stormtrooper, like Barney Stinson, and just like standing here,
like a figurine or something, like a toy.
Yeah, like the full costume,
but a life size. That would be weird. I'm not that much of a nerd, Jim. Jeez.
I mean,
all right, let's. scroll through and see here. Hogmuncher says, are there any high schools in the Whitfield that have strong pro or anti-Pitt leans? Does the North Hills hate Pitt, but the South Hills and Beaver County are ride or die? There was a time when I think there were schools that yes or no. I don't think it really applies anymore. I think recruiting is it's very much more of the world is flat. We're all much closer together. I just don't think it works like that anymore. I don't think the high school coach has nearly as much influence as they used to. And I just feel like because college coaches from all over can reach out over Twitter, I just don't think there's I don't think there are. I don't think there are schools that really help or hurt Pitt. I think the idea of a pipeline school, at least for Pitt and probably for most colleges, I don't think it really exists anymore.
Probably not in the Whitfield. I mean, I think there's probably some schools in Florida that Charlie Partridge can walk into and they're pretty friendly and they're like, oh, you got to check out this guy. But I don't know if there's allegiances like that in the Whitfield right now. And I think a lot of it is because all these kids train with, the same trainers. It's not their high school coach. It's who they trained with in the off season. So you would even say they would have more influence than their high school coach. So I don't think there's like certain high schools that hate Pitt or love Pitt. I mean, I think everyone's just kind of doing their own thing.
I think there was a time, you know what I mean? I think McKeesport was pretty much known. They're like, well, if there's a kid there, you're not getting them. They might go a lot of places. There was a kid who went to like UConn the one year back in like 07 or 08 or something like that. Maybe even a little bit earlier. And it was like, wow, the McKeesport, whatever, what was his name? Was it George Smith? I think might've been the coach at McKeesport for the longest time.
Yeah.
And just nobody from McKeesport went to Pitt. And it was, I don't know if he hated Pitt. I don't know what was behind it. Then flip side, Aliquippa, I mean, nobody ever got away from Pitt until the last decade or so when I think recruiting became more national. It became a lot easier to contact the recruit. College coaches were less reliant on the high school recruit, and recruiting kind of happened outside of the reach of the high school coach. That became less impactful. And the idea of a pipeline of everybody from one school always going somewhere, it just kind of, it faded. And so when guys like Drayvon Henry and Quantel Rain, you know what I mean? These guys went elsewhere. Whereas if those guys had come around in 2002, they're going to Pitt. Like, it's not even a question, but recruiting changed. So I don't know if there's anybody that really, I can't think. I mean, well, they got Dayon Hayes from Westinghouse, right? And then they offered, there's a young guy at Westinghouse. Isn't there?
Yeah,
Keyshawn.
freshman.
Yeah. Keyshawn.
Robinson.
Is it Keyshawn Robinson? Yeah. So we'll see in 4 years if Westinghouse is a pipeline for Pitt. And that's about it. A Sabo says Pitt will only lose one game and will be in contention for the national championship. Phil the Thrill will electrify this town. What touchdown interception ratio for you, Jim, in a regular season would count as electrifying performance from Phil Jurkovec? What is the minimum, the bar to clear for what you would qualify as an electrifying performance? How many touchdowns? 24? Would 24 touchdowns in 12 games be an electrifying performance from Phil Jurkovec for you?
I think it would be. I mean, would they had 11 passing touchdowns as a team last year? So, yeah. I mean, it's like, hey, if he can double
up,
yes. That's pretty good.
Oh, my God. Will Z says his bad prediction is Jurkovec going for 13 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, which, I mean, Will, why not just make it 13-9? I mean, the joke is right there for you, right? I mean, like, and didn't Kenny Pickett have 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions like 2 years in a row? Didn't you do that? I think in 19 and 20. Yeah. So, Will, I mean, come on. I don't know why you would go with 10 interceptions. Wolf HD says, what's the disaster scenario for this season? How low do you believe it can go? Minimum wins, barring more than two starters lost to injury. Let's say they don't lose more than 2 starters to injury. What's the minimum wins with the schedule?
Like disaster scenario. So you're saying just 2?
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously a disaster scenario would be like Bain walks into Acrisure Stadium and blows it up in the middle of a Luke Ravenstall kickoff. I mean, that would be a disaster scenario. Let's say like a realistic, nothing like outrageous, crazy, that all 5 offensive linemen, I don't know, go off to Tibet, like you have 2 starters that you're lost. what's the minimum wins?
I guess 6-6. I mean, you could probably get yourself there because they play in a lot of one possession games. So, I mean, if you start losing those, I mean, what 2017 happened, they were kind of like at a crossroads with the quarterback and everything. The defense was flipping and they were in some tight games. They lost them. So, I mean, things can go wrong. So, I mean, 6-6, I guess.
Yeah. 6-6. That would be pretty rough. I was hoping we were past the point of 6-6 seasons, don't want to get back to that. Although Narduzzi has never gone 6-6. Just saying. Ace Abo says worst case we go 8. So he also said they're going to only lose one game and be in contention for the national championship.
So he's the 8 to 11 range.
Yeah, I guess so. 8 to 11. Alexander Porter says, do you think Che Wabuka will get some playing time? His speed could give us some home run hitting ability. He is fast, Jim.
Very fast.
He is fast.
Is he faster than AJ Woods? I think so.
We will probably get a chance to ask AJ Woods that question. I don't know if we'll get a chance to ask Che Wabuka that question. I don't know if he's going to be speaking to the media this year, but we can ask AJ Woods. We always ask AJ Woods who's the fastest guy on the team, and he usually says himself. I don't know if he's going to admit that another player is faster, but I mean, he's very, very fast. Do we have any indication that he can play wide receiver?
No, I'm not really expecting a whole lot of Che on the field this year.
Yeah. Josh Newark says, I would think QB2 this year has a much, much higher ceiling than last year's, with absolutely no disrespect to Nick Patty. Who has the higher ceiling? Christian Veilleux right now or Nick Patty entering last season?
Well, Veilleux. What, you have 3 years of eligibility to Nick Patty's sixth and final year? Or no, he could play this year if he wanted to. I forgot about that.
Patty?
Yeah.
Patty could play this year, but no, comparing Veilleux this season to Patty last season, who would you say has the higher ceiling? Not just like who has more years to play, but who's a better player? What backup quarterback situation is better? Patty last year or Veilleux this year?
Probably Patty last year. I mean, just because he kind of had the whole trust of the team factor going with him, I think.
Yeah. That's it, though.
I mean, I think Veilleux's probably the more talented quarterback. I think he probably has more arm strength and all that. So on pure talent, probably him. But what that team needed last year, like at times, like whenever your quarterback gets hurt, like, all right, Nick can go in. Like he did that for 3 seasons. So like there was always that factor with him.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, that's true. Patty had more experience than Veilleux has coming into this season.
Just thinking about like some of those, like Kenny Pickett gets hurt for a place. Like Patty had that, like he could moment's notice on the field.
Yeah. He threw a touchdown in the 19 UCF game. Dontavius Butler-Jenkins. He threw a touchdown to DBJ in that game, and then started the next week's game, the Delaware game. But you're right. I mean, he was the goal line touchdown machine at Florida State in 2020. Remember when Kenny Pickett's ankle was completely destroyed? Will Z says no high school hates Pitt per se, but anywhere Terry Smith goes, Pitt's chances go kaput. The funny thing about that, Terry Smith, I mean, when he was at Gateway, Cam Sadler went to Pitt, Shane Hale went to Pitt, Aaron Smith, who was like Terry's son or stepson or something like that, went to Pitt. So yeah, some of those guys, what's his name? Corey Brown and Dorian Bell, John Ditto, those guys got away. But Terry Smith had plenty of guys from Gateway go to Pitt. So it's not 100%, but also Terry Smith isn't going back to high school. So I think he's going to stay in the college ranks. If he leaves the college ranks, I imagine he would go to the NFL. So I don't know. I don't think that's quite the issue that Will makes it out to be. All right, last one. Even though we've talked about it, Matt Durney has had some good comments here, so we'll take his question. How sad are you that Fuel and Fuddle is no more? I have said many times that I'm sad. Jim, did you say you never ate there?
No, I've been there many
okay.
times. Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that. Well, are you sad?
Yeah, I'm sad.
Yeah, me too.
Good Oakland nostalgia.
I had forgotten about it, but now I'm bummed out again. Although I think I saw the guy who owned Fuel and Fuddle at the pool the other day, so maybe I should go talk to him and see if he wants to bring Fuel and Fuddle to the South Hills.
Reopen like a food cart or something. I don't know.
A what?
like a food cart of just like all the old Fuel and Fuddle stuff.
A food what?
Cart.
A food heart?
Cart.
Cart. Oh, like a
Yes.
food cart?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be cool. I mean, he was just swimming. Do you mean, did he have it at the pool?
No, I mean he should do that. Like park it right outside Acrisure.
No, he should just get he should just get a storefront and reopen his restaurant. Jeez, Jim, why do we have to make this complicated? Just get back into the restaurant business. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I think that's a good time to hang it up here. I think we've clearly reached the end of our hour.
Yeah, we're yelling at each other.
We are yelling at each other about misunderstandings. We only have like one more of these to get through before training camp starts. So that'll be good. We'll have plenty to talk about, though, next week. Training camp preview stuff as we continue all our preview content on Panther-Lair.com and with the morning pit and all the different things that we're doing. So make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks everybody who commented tonight, watched the show. It's been a lot of fun as always. Jim, we appreciate it. You have a good evening. Get back to work on the offensive line content, and we will talk to you all the morning pit tomorrow, and then we'll be back with another live show next Wednesday night. So thanks again. Have a great week and weekend. We will see you next week.